Everyone. Hi there, how are you? My name is Dani Henderson. Welcome back to my beautiful channel. My guest today is the one and only, much requested, Andrea Foulkes. Good morning, Andrea, my love.
Beautiful, Dani. How are you in the UK now?
Oh, so good. So happy to be here in the old Blighty, as they call it sometimes. So good, enjoying the beautiful weather. I bitched and moaned about Britain for so long. Oh, it's so grey and the clouds are so white. And actually, it's bloody fantastic. It's such a passionate weather system, its own weather system. You never know what's going to happen 1 second to the next, which quite suits me and my personality. Anyway, Andrea, let's focus on you for a minute. You have a 23-year plus history of taking care of people as a therapist, as a spiritual mentor, helping people greatly with their inner child healing, their trauma, their recovery. What say you to that? And share just a bit of your background, please, and what you can offer.
Thanks, Dani. Well, I've been doing this now. It's like when you start counting on your fingers, you're like, oh my God, it's my 23rd year of doing this full time without a break, non-stop, day in, day out. So I think what that's left me with is like a wealth of experience. Like you can have this intuitive knowledge, which is, you know, what I came in with, which is when I had my awakening, you know, 20 odd years ago. That was what inspired this. But actually, and as some people know, I was very lucky. I ended up on TV. I'm always saying this because that gave me so much experience from being on This Morning in the UK and then doing 2 series of a show, taking celebrities back to past lives. And although we only showed the fluffy aspect of that, you know, I never stopped seeing private clients. And the work that I do privately isn't just past life regression. We're weaving, in my experience, we need to weave between past lives, inner child, ancestral, deal with entities, and also I sing light language codes with people as well. And I also go between lives. These are in my longer sessions in person for 2 hours, but I work a lot online. I personally like Skype. So, but I don't look at people because I'm just tuning in to what I call the emotional Akashic records. And I'm very specific that I'm working with the emotional Akashic records. So we're going back to the origin of your emotional trauma, whether that takes you into past lives, or a lot of trauma is womb trauma, inner child. And when we say inner child, we mean anything from, you know, being in the womb to present day. That's the inner child. And so then we have the ancestral healing. So that's not your soul lineage, that's your birth DNA lineage. So that's what you've inherited from the ancestors. And so we need to look at sometimes the stories of our ancestors. And in my experience, it's like a metaphysical toolbox. You need to rumble between all these things at the same time for the client's biggest healing and biggest soul expansion. And thankfully, I'm very gifted intuitively and be able to read these emotional Akashic records. But what I'm doing in person is regression. And I would say everybody benefits from regression at some point, especially if they live wherever you're going to be at that time. It would really benefit them to do that. But I don't like it where people or therapists say, you need 10 sessions, you must buy a course of 10 sessions. I don't think we need that. I think we need to empower. If we're helping people empower themselves back to themselves, yes, there will be a level of self-sabotage of, you know, if they've got entities attached, the entity might be telling them, don't go to see her, you only need 1 session, or you don't need to see her, don't listen to her. But once they do the inner work and they do the sessions, they realize that these little voices that they thought were helping them were actually sabotaging them, you know, and stopping them from empowering themselves back to themselves. But then we have to look at how those little beings have got attached to them. And they're not all nasty, snarly, demonic beings from lower astral realms. Sometimes they're just lost little souls from this planet, could even be children.
Yeah, very true. Now, you mentioned the Akashic records, or as Cryon, another spiritual voice out there would say, the Akash. Either way, the Akashic records, as we understand, are literally and literarily a recording of our life, our past lives, our way down the past lives, our on and off planet lives, And everything is recorded in our cellular memory. But there is a place, I went to it once in meditation. I thought it was a bunch of old bollocks, a make-up, wishy-washy spiritual nonsense thing. And I was so shocked that as we went into this meditation and were guided into an elevator, up the elevator, and then suddenly I'm in this library and there's a book and it's got both my names on it. I'm like, I did not make that up. That is real. And so for me, I was able to access something without trying, which is the thing. The more we energetically try and make something happen, we try and use physical force, we try and use manifest, abundance, some of these ridiculously outused and overused and outdated words that these spiritual revolution that was hijacked horrifically in so many ways and levels, impressed on us to use, forced us to use, told us this is how you get to spiritual enlightenment, ladies and gentlemen. But we've also come to understand that like religion, if religion doesn't work for you, you go into spirituality, ideally as a seeker's journey, which we're all on as individual souls inside these vessels. There are traps everywhere.
I never used the word Akashic because one, I couldn't say it for many years because I can be slightly dyslexic. So I never said it, but I say the word Akashic now. But my interpretation of Akashic is emotional Akashic. So I am naturally gifted in this. I don't need to do anything to access this information for people. I can just I don't need to look at them. I can just tune into their voice vibration, and I can see what is troubling them emotionally. So for me, the key of the Akashic, from my perception, is I am looking for the emotional trauma that you have not resolved. So that emotional trauma will bring maybe a story of a past life, or it might bring emotional trauma from a galactic lifetime even. Or it might just be from this lifetime, the emotional trauma where the soul fragments off, a part of you fragments off and stays stuck in that time, linked to that event that happened that your conscious self doesn't even remember. It's not necessarily a conscious event you remember. Sometimes it's a conscious event you remember, but a lot of the time it isn't. And that's why you need outside help, because the whole point of the work that Dani does, I do, we're empowering you back to yourself. But at some point, to be empowered back to yourself, you've got to trust somebody to help you take your power back. But you have to make sure that the person who's helping you don't end up in some old priestess battle where some woman's going, you cannot evolve beyond where I am, because often you see this in development classes. I get clients going, I've been in this development class and I can see this client is naturally, literally like what happened to me, literally a few sessions of doing guided meditations, and it was like, the parachute had been pulled and I was off, whereas I see clients who that's happened for them, and then they've been in a group where they've got trapped with some old priestess from a past life who they knew in the past life, maybe even, and she's stopping them from evolving, like thou cannot evolve beyond moi. And that's not helpful for them. They really need to be able to go, what, it's okay. And maybe even in those little sessions, I'm giving them permission slip to go, you don't have to stay where this woman or man tells you to stay. You can evolve beyond this. But maybe we've got to go back and see where your fear of evolving beyond the teachers come from. Maybe that's a past life trauma. Maybe that's a trauma from childhood. Maybe you've even got a little entity attached saying, no, you can't evolve further because I might lose you and you wouldn't be there for me. And so there's complexity.
Definitely. And it's so true. And so just giving people the idea and the truth of their own reality without touching the Bible, which people always go to the program of the Bible. That's not where you get all your information. Oh, blasphemer. Please, if you get triggered at this point, please notice it is a program inside of you. It's got nothing to do with me or Andrea. It is about you getting triggered, consciously or unconsciously. Choose it or don't choose it. But if you get triggered and go, oh, the Bible, you are owned, friend. You are owned. Free will does not exist in you in that moment. Andrea, let me finish. It doesn't exist in you in that moment. If you get triggered by the Bible and you decide that we're blaspheming, and which of course we're not, we're telling you the truth, it means that you are owned. Now, you might also be owned by an entity that's stopping you from growing. Okay, you could be the most famous spiritual leader in this planet right now. I don't care. Andrea doesn't care. Nobody really cares apart from you. But if you are that person out there as a spiritual leader, then you best be aware that you are still open and vulnerable to attachments, to entities, whether they're demonic, whether they're pretending to be angels, whether they're mimics, you know. So everyone needs to have a heads up on the awareness of what an entity is, what a demon is, what an angel is. And you empaths out there, you beautiful, kind feelers, you are one of the most vulnerable groups. Andrea, please continue your thought.
Yeah, empaths, it's really interesting because in my experience of regressing people who are very empathic, beautifully kind souls, like the sweetest souls that ever came to the planet, they can hoover up. Often they hoover up the deceased souls of children. So they end up with deceased souls of children because they're like a mummy figure. So the little entities feel, the little lost children feel safe with them. So often when I'm regressing them and, you know, I'm pushing your consciousness into the background. So you're like the observer going, oh my God, what am I saying? Where's this coming from? Ooh. But, you know, you can tell it's an absolute truth. Once you've had that experience, people go, you know, even when I used to film this for TV, we were doing this, but we weren't airing this, even though initially they were like, oh my God, this is like TV gold. But ITC rules and regulations wouldn't allow us to broadcast about entities. But they did let me speak about it twice on a show called This Morning. But I spoke about it in a fluffy way. And you can see that on my YouTube channel. But when you go back to people having little children entities attached, so I'm pushing their consciousness into the background, the entity might come forward and it might go, I'm 5, and you'll see their face crumple and literally look like a child, and you're in the background going, oh my goodness, what am I saying? This is so obscure, you know. But this emotion, and people usually describe that they can't stop the emotion that comes forward. It's like, you know, a tidal wave of emotion. And you know, I intuitive, because I've done this for 23 years and probably many lifetimes, are very skilled in this. So I can discern whether it's an adult or a child, and I will address the child and speak to them, find out what their name is, how old they are, how long they've been attached to you. But classically, how people get rid of entities does not work. It might work temporarily, and you might be lucky, but really you have to go back to the cohesion, and cohesion is emotion. And that's why I talk about the emotional Akashic records. So if you don't go back to the emotion that you held on the day this being, it might be a child, might not be a child, but whoever it is, if you don't go back to the emotion that you were going through on the day this entity attached to you, could be a little soul, could be even a lower astral realm being, could even be a naughty fairy or pixie, because there are good ones and naughty ones, and we've talked about that I think once before with Elena in a video. But it's like, you've got to go back to that day, and it could have been off-world, could have been this lifetime, could be past life. I root between all that, which you're going to struggle to do just on your own in the beginning until you've had experience of this. And then you know, I've got clients who are like, I can get rid of them myself now. You know, that's the whole thing, to help people, empower people back to themselves and to scan yourself. This is kind of, I suppose, part of spiritual hygiene. But when you've got a truckload of trauma from childhood you've not processed, you've never processed, you know, people are very confused about past lives. They don't understand past life regression as a therapy is a really deep healing tool to turn all the past lives into the 0 point field, where you're not triggered by the story of the past life. You're not glorified by who you thought you were, because I've been doing this 23 years and in general, nobody goes back to being anybody famous. You know, it's really getting back to healing the trauma. You know, a lot of it is loss of love, lost loved one, I will never love again, or, you know, kind of it's not safe to have children sometimes because maybe in the past life you died in childbirth or your child died and you decided, oh, it was just too upsetting, you don't want to be a parent again. And that could be a man or a woman. I've seen that happen. So we're going to clear all this so you can live in this lifetime, in this reality, fully functioning without, you know. Also the other thing is people stop their abundance, you know, and that could be money, and money isn't a bad word, but you could have entities stopping you from earning a living, you know. You could have past lives stopping from earning a living. You could have beliefs from childhood running that stop you from earning money because of what your parents because what happens in the first 7 years of your life is the programming of what happens for the rest of your life if you don't go back and clear that, isn't it? We've talked at a little tangents.
It's all good though, because we really want to give people you know, every bit of wisdom and knowledge that you and I physically, mentally, emotionally have, of course, with our experiences of these many years that we've had in this time of the spiritual war, the actual global war that's happening around us on many different levels, and help them equip themselves, remind themselves of their greatness, their own majesty, their own brilliance, and not get triggered by, oh, I don't have entities, I'm this, I'm that. Like we've all had them. I was at a stage years ago in my early 30s where I was at the point of total possession. Now, if I can admit that, you know, and I can put my ego down and go, oh my God, you know, for years living in a haunted house, dealing with demonics, almost being killed at 4 years old by demonic entities. It's all in my book, guys, Angels, Demons and Aliens, which is a journey of my life where I've had physical interactions with angels, demons and aliens, physical, not in my mind, not made up, not off my head on drugs. And I did that so we could look and people can read it and then connect to their own rememberings or stories, or read a story that like, oh my God, that happened to me. You know, it's time we did that again. We put the Bible over there. We put religion that tries to own you, suffocate you, kill you, maim me, haunt you all your life and threaten you with fear. Anything with fear attached to it, chuck it in the bin. It's never going to hurt you. It's never going to save you. It's always going to hurt you. Andrea, I want you please to address some of the things that you've been raising here in people, questions that will naturally come. And one of them is 2 questions here. First question, how does a person scan themselves? Second question, I know it's a big one. How do you scan yourself? How does someone release an entity from them?
It's hard to explain it because I'm all about giving people an experience. So you'd kind of have to watch somebody doing this in general, but you could just, you know, the thing is, it's hard to do it on yourself. That doesn't mean you can't do it, but the more inner journey work you do and the more you go inside yourself and the more you set your intention for authenticity, for honesty, for discernment, for integrity in your own being, as you start to embody those emotions in yourself, anything that isn't of those is you're going to feel when you feel like a sabotage, you know. So if you feel like sabotage happening to yourself or a voice in your head saying, oh, you don't want to do that, but logically it doesn't make sense because it's actually a very good thing that you want to do. You know, let's just use, for example, a lot of people are employed, you know, I've always been self-employed since I was 18. So imagine somebody hears a voice in their head and their personality thinks, you know, I'd really like to be self-employed, but you hear a voice in your head going, oh, you don't want to be self-employed. No, that wouldn't be a good thing. That's a sign you might have an entity attached. Or, you know, sometimes it isn't necessarily a voice you hear, it's just an energy that takes over you. And you have to discern whether this is your higher self guiding you or whether it's actually an entity attached. And so it's hard for the lay person to necessarily know this. I don't think this is something you can necessarily say to someone, I can tell you in a few minutes in a video how to do it. I don't think I can. I think it requires a lot of either experience, you know, I have a lot of clients now who, like I said, they can do this work on themselves, but they've done quite a few sessions and they've done workshops where we've talked about this. They've witnessed me maybe doing this with someone else. So they've kind of gathered this is something that it's a bit like the ancient mystery schools, but they're not hidden mystery schools anymore. But the thing is, most people want to run before they can walk, and they're like, oh, quick, tell me how I can do all this. I want to have all this knowledge and wisdom, but I don't want to have to go through 23 years of experience to get that wisdom. And I'm sorry, the truth is, some of this stuff, you're not going to pick it up straight away. It's like, I've got a client just now, and she genuinely knows she's got entities attached, but she has a lot of trauma in her neck area, because when she was born, the birthing experience of her mum birthing her meant that her mum was paralyzed after this and disabled, and she had a 9-year-old brother at the time when she was born as the baby, and the brother was so angry that mummy wasn't the same after this. You know, you've got jealousy often with siblings as well, which can bring in naughty pixies and all that kind of stuff. Historically, that's what I've seen. But when you've got something that disabled mummy, and the 9-year-old boy thinks the only thing that's happened to create this is this sister being born, and he, you know, abused my client mercilessly, beat her up, he hit her, used to push her over as a baby, she hit her head a lot. She has a lot of trauma in her neck area from this experience, from her brother trying to strangle her, get rid of her, you know, and you've got to clear all this trauma. So she has a weakened energy field. So when anything negative comes in, and she's got a lot of fear and anxiety in this lifetime, which isn't just from the subconscious, you know, she is acting fearfully and with anxiety. So she's got to go in and realize that the weakened point of her energy is her neck. It might not be the neck for you. You might hoover up things in your solar plexus. If you're not grounded, you might have things linked to your base chakra, or you might have a blockage in your third eye. So it's wherever there's a weakened cell memory from trauma, and it could be this life, could be past life, energies and entities will attach through those weakened portals in your energy field. That's how they get in.
So many different things there. I just remembered something, and it's so funny when we talk like this, obviously it brings up a lot of feelings, memories, thoughts, and then obviously we're here to share as much as we can. I went, I think it was last year. Yeah, it must be, because we're now in January. Yeah, so last year I went to Vegas, and I went with Kathy O'Brien, who is one of the greatest whistleblowers of our time.
I saw that.
Yeah, whistleblowing on the government, of what the government programs do to children and young adults, and sex mules and sex tools and spies and all of that. And her book is The Transformation of America. And I was with,
I love it.
Yeah, I was with Kathy O'Brien, I was with Sasha Stone, we were with Mel Kay, we were with Roseanne Barr, and we're all sitting backstage. And it was right before Roseanne was going on stage, and she was getting it was so funny, she's so funny, getting her eyelashes done. And I'm standing with Joanne, who is Joanne Alvik, who I work with. She does some marketing for, a lot of marketing for Sasha Stone. She works with me on things too. I love that lady. And there were some people there. Who was the woman? Judy Mikovich. Judy Mikovich was there. We were all backstage. Yeah, and it was the Awakening tour. There were 5,000 people in the audience. You know, I was just there to hang out with friends for the weekend. And I'm getting to the point, guys. Not just name dropping and showing off and puffing up my you know, YouTube image here. And I remember all of a sudden feeling this energy come over me, and feeling violently sick, and it shocked me because it took me by surprise. Yeah. And I look around, and there is a man standing behind me, a real full-bodied, full-blooded man. I'd already seen him come in as a kind of bodyguard for some guy who's a CEO and a global mogul. Not going to say his name. Most of us, I've never heard of him. I mean, that doesn't mean anything either. There's too many people, we can't have heard of them all. But I look at this guy, and he's standing there, and I swear to, holy shit, he's got the devil in his eyes, and he is glaring at me, right? And I looked at him, and I just gave what for back. And I just felt like my shields went up. I stood my ground. I glared at him and I just energetically pushed back hard. And he literally went like that, you know, and then I thought my usual violent thoughts. when the swords come out and the shields go up. And I looked at this man and I thought, yep, you're exactly what I sensed you were coming in. You know, these people I mentioned are extraordinarily well-known, extremely famous, globally famous. They are trigger points for many people, especially the systems that repress our planet. They don't want Sasha Stone, Roseanne Barr, Kathy O'Brien, Mel K standing on stage and saying, oi, we're going to tell you what's really going on. So it was interesting too, just to help people. Before that man decided stupidly to come for me, because I was hanging with Joanne and there was a jealousy from this horrible, evil man toward her because she was close with someone that he was trying to own and suffocate, and other people around him. Again, at that level, you really do see the real dark ones. They're out. They're not hiding. They're there. They're everywhere. And when I'd seen that man earlier, and a man had said to me, see that guy there? That's so-and-so. And I'm like, who's the guy with him? Because the guy with him was the guy with the devil eyes. Now, the guy with the devil eyes, when I first saw him, I saw an image instantly of a broken down, almost homeless person, you know, broken down, shuffling around, had so many entities in his field, and then it was gone. So ladles and jelly beans, when you see people, we are programmed, we are able to make an instant judgment, and we all do it. At the beginning of this broadcast, I deliberately said I bitch and moan about the weather in Britain. I did that on purpose because we've got to witness and watch our own programs, our own triggers. When we're watching someone and we go, oh, I was fine till you said that. Oh, no, I can't go any further with you. Oh, no, who do you think you are, kind of thing. All of these things are programs and triggers, and we've got to get back to trusting our first instinct more and more and more. That is our safety net in many regards. What do you think, Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, with the entity thing, you can see it in people's, I mean, I can see it in people's eyes, literally. And maybe my presence brings them forth from the person, but I can see them looking through the person almost at me. Sometimes they scan me up and down, and I can see them oscillating forward. And, you know, in general, it's not appropriate to say to some person, oh, do you know you've got some other entities attached in you? Unless they've come to see me privately, you know, and then I might say, yeah, I can see the entity. And there's people I've met over the years, and eventually they have come to see me, and I say, yeah, I saw that entity years ago when I just randomly spoke to you in the street. You know, I could see it looking at me, kind of thing. And of course, it's not going to tell you to go and see someone like me. You're going to have to kind of gather some of your own consciousness and do some research. You know, I have other videos you could watch on YouTube. Do some research and go, you know what? I think I have got other personalities. Could look like multiple personalities, but you've got to be able to discern between multiple personalities, which could be a fragment of your own soul that's fragmented off, or whether they're like Klingons attached. And would be, you know, if you saw how I do it, and sadly, the sad thing is, I wish people who've had this experience, you know, having regressed thousands and thousands of people, I wish people would let their sessions be shown. In general, people I regress are not open to letting their sessions be shown. And that is because it's so deeply personal and so deeply intimate. Yes, I did TV shows taking people to past lives, but what you weren't shown was that I got rid of a load of entities. Yes, a small group of people saw that happen, the cameramen and the crew, and they were like, oh my God, I believe this now. If I had not witnessed that and how you got rid of those entities, I would not have believed this existed. But it's not like, you know, how the religious approach to it is. It's so beautiful. I just speak with them and I ask them, and I say, I have no power to make you go. I'm like Glenda the Good Witch. It's like, I have no power to make you go. The power is inside you, children. But it's like, do you want this? I ask the client, do you want this? Now you can tell there's somebody, it's very clear there's something attached to you. You know it yourself in the session. Do you want this being to attach anymore? No. Okay, so the being hears my client say no. I go, do you see that? They don't want you here anymore. Most of the time they've attached, even if they're lost little children, they've attached through tacit consent. And tacit consent is just your pure naivety of not really understanding the nature of your own energy field, the nature of reality. Because in the mainstream, you've been guided to believe all the stuff I talk about, you know, Dani talks about, Elena talks. You've been told that this is all woo-woo and ooh, it's all nonsense. At the best, it might be science fiction. You know, at the worst, it's woo-woo and terrible. Whereas this is the knowledge that not only liberates your soul, but can help you heal, you know, help you hear feelings, limiting beliefs, emotions. In many instances, I work with people and it heals their physical bodies, you know. So if you knew how powerful you were, and if you understand that the mainstream is not going to let you know how powerful they are, their whole industries in selling all kinds of twinky twonky stuff, food, all kinds of things you don't need necessarily, are not to empower you back to them yourselves, or to keep you in a limited bandwidth of reality. Because once you find out that you can take your power back, you can clear stuff off of yourself, you can know how powerful you are, you can say the mighty no within inside yourself, you command these beings to go, and literally clients see them spiral up out of them. When they've had little kids attached sometimes, and I've spoken to the kids, you know, like they didn't know they died, they got confused, they were in an accident, and the next thing they died. And maybe they didn't attach to my client, they've been attached to other people, but my client seemed kindly like a mummy, so they attached to them. And then I bring their real mummy, who, because you have to make sure they, if you're bringing loved ones to collect them who, you know, are coming from a soul level, that they did have a good relationship with them. Often they'll go bye-bye, and they wave as they're going, and they just spiral up. And sometimes they go, here for a long time, and they desperately want to carry on their own soul's journey to wherever they need to go next. It's not a full life, even if they loved my client and they go, well, I loved her, we were beloveds, you know. And then my client wonders why relationships never work out, because this person they did love in a past life. And often I have to take my client back to see the past life where she knew this person attached, from her soul perspective, and then we might look at it from his soul perspective of how he saw her in that past life, and we clear all this, and then she's like, okay, I did love him, but I understand what you're saying now, it's time to let him go. I might meet him in another timeline, whatever, but in this lifetime I need to be free now, and we need to let each other go, and his soul needs to carry on his own journey, and that soul may even be coming back as her child in this lifetime, and that can't happen if he's still attached to her. So it's very multidimensional, fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, I can attest to the great work that you do, because when my beloved fiance suddenly passed, I did come to you to help me with my disabling grief, was the best way I could put it right now. Yeah, I was completely zombified. I wasn't functioning. I just wanted to die. And I was so heartbroken. And heartbreak literally is a physical thing. I mean, real heartbreak is actually physical. And you can feel your body dying and your life force essence just leaving you. And you were remarkable in my recovery again. But I, you know, knew before then, and I'm just happy to attest, obviously, how brilliant you are. But you can't do that for everybody, obviously. So I do want us to share a couple of tips with people watching, and guys out there. You know, it is your job to get right with you, right? To get right with you and your healing, to own up to the fact that you're probably carrying stuff from the womb to the present moment, and that it's going to help you, benefit you to get clear of your spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, disabling baggage from your whole life, okay? Not just talking about taking responsibility for the stuff that you did, that none of us are always that good at taking responsibility for, but just helping you clear and get grounded. And so how would you briefly, Andrea, tell someone how they can scan their own body, whether they're going to choose to do the inner work or not. How can they scan their body to honestly look for attachments?
I mean, you could stand and look in the mirror. Maybe you might see stuff in the mirror. You could be aware of, you know, whether you've got to get very honest with yourself, I think. And you could even ask, you know, your loved friends and family if they're a little bit conscious. You know, often, you know, it's when we get triggered by people emotionally. Like, actually, next week, this is quite a story to explain it. So, I've got some clients of a certain culture that are very open to understanding that there are entities. So normally I wouldn't let somebody sit in on the session, but the daughter sat in on the mother's session, an adult daughter. And because it was during lockdown and there was nowhere for people to go. So the mother had this entity attached, and the entity, you know, came forward. And I thought, gosh, you know, I was concerned that the daughter would be shocked at this, but she whispered in my ear, I know this entity. I know this one. I've seen it. So, you know, when we trigger our loved ones emotionally, sometimes we're like, 1 minute you're you, the next minute you're like, and your family like, oh my God, it's like they're not themselves, you know. And we say these giveaway statements, I was not myself. No, because you got taken over. So the emotion that you triggered in that moment triggered an entity maybe to come forward. And sometimes if you ask people and you ask their loved ones or their close friends and family, yeah, it's like their face distorted. So sometimes their face distorts, sometimes their voices change. You know, when they get triggered emotionally, they go into a rant or they act like a child. You're like, how old are you? You know, I thought I married a grown-up adult man, and now you're ranting like a 5-year-old. You know, now that could be his own wounded inner 5-year-old, or it could be an entity attached. You know, or they're acting like they're in a Victorian era or something. All of a sudden they're saying odd words that are very otherworldly, of another era. Could be an entity attached. These are all signs that you might have entities attached to you that are stopping you from living the full version of you as the adult in this lifetime. Like, I know a girl who, you know, in certain situations, she would start talking like a child, you know, and it would be really like, you're a really powerful adult businesswoman. And the next thing you're talking like, oh, and like, that's a sign of an entity, you know, like she's acting like a 3-year-old toddler, you know, and then they act all coy, like, you know, yes, you can be a cutesy person in your personality, but if you start going around going, you know, that's not you. That's not an adult. That's something is in you that's you know, affecting you, isn't it?
Oh my God, it's totally, you bring to mind a woman I knew years ago who was dating a friend of mine, and they were visiting from the States, and she brought a bloody teddy bear off the plane with her. She brought a teddy bear off the plane, a grown-ass woman, right? She's here to meet my friend's family, yeah, as a potential wife. And she put the little teddy bear in the back of the car and did the seatbelt because you got to be very careful. I wanted to punch her. Like, stop it, you silly cow. No, like, stop it.
But that can be, you do, I mean, in all compassion to people, sometimes when you see grown adult women doing weird things like, you know, collecting China dolls, and this usually, and it might be a broad statement, people might be really offended, but in general, it's a wounded inner child. I could more or less formulaically tell you they had a traumatic childhood, and they probably in emotional, to self-soothe, they revert back to being this little child. But you're an adult woman, and you don't need to collect dolls' houses and play with little dolls' houses. And I bet you that was what they did to soothe themselves in a traumatic family dynamic. You know, whether there was abuse or loss of a parent or whatever was going on in the inner child. You know, yes, I've got my childhood teddy, you know, but I don't really, you know, I might cuddle it occasionally, but I haven't got them all lined up. You know, I'm an adult now, and that doesn't mean there isn't a little girl inside me that likes to play and colour and have fun now, and, you know, in part of my life. But I'm not a child. I am an adult woman. And you know, if you're going to be a successful businesswoman and you want to be a successful human being in this lifetime, you've got to clear this backlog of stuff in the background. Otherwise, you're just like, and I hate it when I see these adult women. I mean, you see a lot of them in Glastonbury. It's like you're a woman in your 60s, but you're dressed like you're a little girl.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, the woman I'm talking to, she was showing a physical trauma, and that she was revealing a program from a child. So the teddy bear represented her being a good girl. And she needed to be a good girl to impress the man's parents and family and friends, etc. Yeah, so of course we have all the compassion needed. I still wanted to slap at that when I saw her, but you know, let's just put it in perspective here. This is what we're trying to do, right? I want to talk about the scanning. I'll tell you how I do it, very many different ways. For those of you that are practicing seeing through your third eye, the best way to do that is to close your eyes. Take a deep breath and literally look through your third eye. Look through the pineal gland. Look through the center of your forehead, okay? And just imagine that that's what you're doing. But take your attention and your focus here and get in front of a mirror, as Andrea said, and look through the third eye. Look at the energy outside of you. Don't overthink it, just do it. And as you're looking at yourself, you're going to see, feel, imagine, sense anything that might be in your auric field, in your electromagnetic field, and you just locate. You just locate, you start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. If you keep looking at books and not thinking you can do anything, then that's right. Keep looking at books and you won't be able to do anything. Take an action.
One other thing.
Make yourself clear.
Yeah, one other thing they could use, I'm just thinking if I've got one here, hold on, I have. It might be an old one. Okay, now the thing with pendulums is you can override it with your subconscious mind. I used to teach pendulum workshops years ago, but how you can override using a pendulum, get it to ascertain yes or no. So for me personally, it goes clockwise for yes, and then I say, show me no. See, it changes direction and goes the other way. And then I have the don't want to answer. It goes back and two. Can you see it going back and two? Yeah. Now, if I just did this and said, have I got entities attached? Yes or no? Okay, it's saying no. But I could override that. I know how to override it with my ego. So what you could do is just get a piece of paper and write some questions on a piece of paper, scrunch up the pieces of paper so you don't know which is which pieces of paper, and then just dip it over that question that you've scrunched up on the paper and ask, is the answer to this question on this paper yes or no? Yes or no? And then you're not getting your ego involved. Is that helpful, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's somebody who's a little bit more advanced. And anyway, anyone who's triggered by the pendulum, just okay, take a breath. It's like a gun. Depends what the intention is in the hands of the user. It is not an evil tool. It is a tool of natural ancient divination. Okay. Came way before the Bible. It does react and respond to our electromagnetic frequency, our aura. And as you rightly say, it can be interfered with. When I was on television in Britain before, in the studio, I would often see these little black nymphs. And I'd never seen nymphs before. And the thing was, the studio next to our TV studio was full of naked girls jumping around on beds and grinding on each other. And so this building, this studio, it took on every entity energy. We had us spiritualists, us, clairvoyants, us lovers, us therapists, giving free information out and help and guidance to the general public. And then in the other room, you had all this, Babylonian, activity going on.
Babylonian. Well, that's the other thing.
Babylonian.
That's how men, because porn is predominantly focused at men, but that's how men end up with these demonic, lascivious, dark, lower astral realm entities attached to them. You know, do not watch pornography. That is the lowest astral realm beings, and they're, which gets on to my other thing about the 1st and 2nd of February date. They're harvesting your louche energy. You know, they're harvesting this sacral energy that you have maybe had some trauma into your sacral chakra, so they can hook in through that. And then you get these lustful, obsessive sexual desires that are not true love from the heart. You know, you've got this graphic sexuality that young men are being programmed with these days. And then these lower astral realm beings come into them through the technology of television and pornography being used for television. And that was what I was going to say about the 1st and 2nd of February. And I'm not an astrologer, but in some ancient astrology, apparently they believe that the 1st and 2nd of February is the most powerful time of the year. And also, if you look at the things that they do, that the mainstream, what they're pushing around that time of year, look what global events are going on. And I think the Super Bowl goes on around that time. So they want you all watching this thing, because like I heard this other lady saying, which is true, we know the Super is a big cauldron, so they want you all focusing your energy on this. So they're going to use TV screens to, you know, do all kinds of, they might make it look like music, but it's a kind of Babylonian ritual that these musicians are reenacting. And they want all you focusing on it, your energy being harvested like louche energy for another project. That's what we call energy louche. So they're stealing your mind, your thoughts, and using that for their projects. Whereas your mind energy is so precious and so sacred to you that turn off the TV, don't go and watch this stuff, you know, go, okay, this is what the mainstream want me to do. They want us all watching this at the same time, at the same day. Okay, so if that's what they want us doing, I'm going to go and do something different, because that's how I take my power back. You take your power back by bucking the system and doing something completely different, almost like the antithesis opposite. You know, don't listen to the music in the wrong frequency because they change it. And because I'm dyslexic, I muddle up whether it's 432 hertz or whether it's 440. They changed that in the 1950s to a lower frequency. When you hear the music on the correct frequency, whole of the ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Okay. So thank you for that. Yeah, loosening the energy. So again, in order to keep ourselves, our spiritual hygiene up to date and all the rest of it, there's many ways we can look, like, again, like I said, through the third eye scanning, using the pendulum, but also those of you that like and believe in words, strong words, something I use. Now, I am not a Christian. I do not care about religions. I have zero respect for them. If it works for you, lovely. Doesn't work for me. I don't want to be controlled or threatened that if I don't follow a certain person, I'm going to go to hell. No, I'm not playing that. I didn't come to this planet to then be owned and dominated by a set of rules. Again, if you get triggered, it's a program, darling. It is a program in you that you didn't even put there. It was put in place, part of your training. It's all right. Let yourself get triggered, but recognize it. Let me finish, please. I'm just going to go back to a couple of words. Because, you know, you and I, we're both ADD. We've got so much to say. We could sit here for 4 hours and dump a really good lot of stuff. But I want to share something that I've also used to help me scan and clear my own physical body and space. So some of the words I use are: I rebuke you, I bind you, and I cast you out. I rebuke you, I bind you, and I cast you out. Now, the whole energy frequency that you inhabit is going to be a little bit shook when you start demanding and standing ground within your own vessel and in your own energy field. Okay? So something that doesn't resonate, that shouldn't be, it's an incongruent energy frequency in your field. It's going to feel that. Okay? When you stand ground in yourself and you demand that your space is cleared, you are going to create an effect. Okay? I rebuke you, I cast you out, I bind you, whatever way you want to say those words. I also use sage. I believe in sage, another ancient technological tool. I will sage the whole house. I will say prayers around the whole house. I sage under the bed. I sage the pillows. Be careful not to leave ashes flying around. Obs. But I did it years ago in Coronado. It's so funny with this such lovely, lovely girl. I was there at a house. The grandma was haunting everyone. They had a giant yacht in the back garden, and we're going around. She wanted to help me. And so she's going around with her sage, and she almost set fire to the bed because she dropped some sage without having a shell under it or a plate under it, and bloody made holes. And I'm like, oh bloody hell! Anyway, that was a freaky story. But anyway, so be careful. So sage, sage, sage. Let people sage you. I always, and when I'm saging someone, I have them turn slowly clockwise. I always have them lift the soles of their feet. I always do that, just as a matter of course. Open palms, sage the palms. We have hand chakras. We hold a lot of energy, soles of our feet and our hands too. Saging. I love to put salt, Himalayan salt, good ground salt, nice pure salt. When I've done a big sage and open doors and windows, around all the windows. It doesn't matter if it's under the corners, all the corners, inside and outside. Leave it there. Salt dissolves, and it is proven also that salt can also burn a negative energy entity, something trying to come in and attached. Bibles, sage a Bible, chuck it under your bed, chuck it under your children's beds. Do whatever. These ancient tools are there for a reason, to help protect. Okay, so we use them without going, well, because one more thing. I also use frankincense and myrrh. I love those oils. They are also.
I burned them. I'm burning them now.
There you go.
I just put drops of it in, or spikenard even. I've got, that's a really ancient herb. It doesn't smell very nice, spikenard, because that was supposedly the ancient herb that they used to anoint the feet of Mary Magdalene. But again, it's like so much truth is mixed up with, you know, like they're using it for their agenda, whereas actually probably spikenard on the bottom of your feet was probably for a reason, you know, because the soles of our feet, you know, that's why I like to walk barefoot, because I can almost pick up the energy of the earth by doing that. And like, I love Palo Santos, which is an ancient wood. I smudge people when I do workshops. I always start the day with, I take each person outside individually, I smudge them, I sing a light language activation into their energy field, and we ask them what you want to get out of the day. Because sometimes when you're doing events, you don't want to share with the group because you're new and you don't feel comfortable with the group, but you want to set your intention. And even with everything, setting your intention that my house is my sacred space, put crystals in all the corners of the room, wash them, cleanse them, you know, cleanse your house, clear it out, open the doors, you know, let all the energy flow through. And like Dani said, you know, smudging your house is because the sage is antibacterial, so it's killing bacteria in your house as well. So we're such powerful beings, and if these entities, you can feel them, they're not in you, they're approaching on you. It's like the naivety of humanity is quite shocking, because I go, well, why didn't they go, well, I was terrified. I was like, well, why didn't you just tell them to get lost? You know, like the mighty no, get lost, you have no power over me, just go away, you know. And when you really embody that I am presence of no, the mighty no, you know. But nothing in this culture, unless you've had really conscious parenting, nothing in this culture is to inspire you to know how powerful you are. Because if you knew how powerful you are, the game's over. It just falls like a house of cards once you take your power back and you know how powerful you are, that you are a cosmic alchemist in the world, isn't it? And when you start to embody this power within you, people aren't going to go, oh, isn't she lovely? She's in her own power. You know, people in the 3D will be triggered by you, because remember, they've probably got entities attached. And so their entities won't like the powerful, radiant being. You know, we've always decided, you know, always sort of shown Glenda the Good Witch as being terrified of Glenda the Good Witch, when actually she's in her power and she's lovely.
Totally true. you know, again, everything we're doing as a humanity is on a bigger scale about balance. You know, there has to be balance in the universe. There has to be balance in our solar system, and there must be balance on our beautiful planet. Whether you call it yin and yang, black and white, left and right, it doesn't really matter. But we need to be balancing that energy in us, the masculine and the feminine that we all have access to. You mentioned about men in particular having so many entities attached. And again, going back to the old-fashioned programming that we have, you know, we are not in the 1500s, ladies, okay? We do not need to be listening and being advised and being governed by our husbands, lest we bring them, you know, their slippers and their pipes and all that bollocks. The other day, it's funny, a mate of mine, Derek, he does make me laugh. He posted something that was written years ago about, you know, women serving on their hands and knees to their husbands, you know, because obviously they're nothing without their husbands in that old-fashioned thinking that no longer exists, nor should it. There was something like, you can fascinate a woman with a bit of cheese. Sure thing. Us women, our brains are only the size of meaty buses, so we love cheese. So silly. But if you take a woman who is repressed and owned and dominated and is so programmed from birth to now to only do what her husband tells her, and if he doesn't like what she's watching or what she's reading or the friend she's seeing, you know, she can't even breathe. You can't breathe, you know, with an asshole who guides and governs and dominates them, you know, and that union between those two, and it could be two men and women, whatever, you're going to choose your program, what you're going to get triggered at right now. I really don't care, because the point is still the same. You know, not one of us came here to be dominated. Not one of us came here to be dominated, okay, by physical humans or bloody entities. So let's start with our spiritual hygiene. Let's accept the fact that no matter who you think you are, you've written all these books out there, you've got these TV shows, you've done these films, you're standing on stages, you're part of the government around the world. How do you know you haven't got a ton of entities and demons around you? You probably don't if your ego's that big. That's why Andrea and I are here to give everyone else, because no one above another. We are all equal in our ability to stand as sovereign souls, as beautiful human beings. And it's time that, as you keep saying, Andrea, we got to know and remember how bloody powerful we are. No one is bigger or better than me or you beautiful guys out there.
And when I think the other thing is, one of the hardest things for people to do, you know, and I remember years ago saying this to some girl, and it was like stopped her in her tracks. I said, I think you're confusing me for somebody who cares what your opinion of me is. I don't care what you think about me. My sense of who I am and myself isn't involved in what you think. You're entitled to, you know, you can say to people, well, thank you for sharing your opinion of me. If they're saying something negative about you, you can say, thank you for sharing your opinion. I'm very happy that you shared your opinion, but actually I don't care, you know, and that's so empowering. And people think, oh, that would be rude. But actually what they're saying to you is rude, because they're trying to tell you who you are, and you're going, actually I don't care, so you can shut up because I don't care. And you can do it in such a graceful way that's so confused. Like one of the other things that I often say, which is hilarious, say somebody visited you that you didn't like, and because it's like a word salad, right, as they're leaving and you're waving bye-bye, you can say, do come again when you've got less time.
Yeah,
you override their mind.
So great. It's so great. You know, one of the things that some people with ego, and guys out there, lovingly, I say this to you, I've covered this so many times on the channel, Andrea, as you know what I'm about to say now. But those of us that truly believe that we have guides, we have a guidance team, Jesus, Mary, I mean, people give themselves, oh no, my guide is this and my guide is that. Well, well done, well done, well done. You have the greatest guides in the world. All the ancient ascended masters follow you. I heard one knobhead, Ishmael Perez, that knobhead, saying that one of his guides is Babaji. Oh, just shut up and sit down, boy, for God's sake, it's so annoying. And a liar. Yeah, I did say that. Anyway, so in terms of anyone thinking they have a guidance team, they have this, they have that, well, really, if you truly have the goodness and the greatness of all these great ascended masters in your field, then you have the power to sit down and truly, honestly fire them, sack them, one by one by one. And those of you that say, I don't know who my guides are, I never see them, it's fine. You need your imagination to bring the information. So what you do is you sit down, take a breath. I mean, you need to breathe, otherwise you die. Sit down, take a breath, relax, and then just imagine, close your eyes, and imagine calling all of your guides one by one in front of you. And you say, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired, and do it. If you feel yourself negotiating, you're full of crap, you're full of ego, you do not have good guides attached to you, you have something else going on, something negative going on. Because if you...
Well, I have the maddest story of a guy once, and the woman, I mean, they're both as doolally as a box of frogs. Now, they both thought they were spiritual, and I'm sat there listening to what they're telling me, and I'm like, my face is like, I cannot believe you two have zero discernment. You have zero discernment, you have zero integrity when I tell you what happened. So this guy's telling me he's all spiritual, right? And there's this woman. I said, oh, who is this woman to you? He's, well, I work with her spiritually. Turns out this woman's married with children, okay? But a couple of times in the week, she comes over to his house, and he's not that sexually taken with her, but they have to have sex together, because when they do the sex, they bring in an entity for her to channel, and she goes into this channeling state. So her husband thinks they're working together on a spiritual project. He doesn't know that his wife is shagging this bloke, so that she can go into trance and channel this being. And I'm listening to this nonsense, like, okay. And he said, well, I've stayed with the family sometimes. I'm like, you have disrespected her husband. You've disrespected the sacredness of her marriage. And she's disrespecting her own marriage. And you two nutters think that you've got to have sex together to channel a being. I've heard some nonsense in my time, but this is the biggest pile of nonsense I have ever heard. And you, silly lady, are a mother to 3 children. And this is the kind of motherhood you're showing to the world. That is... And what kind of being? Oh, so some high vibrational beings going to come through you two from this sexual shenanigans? I don't think so.
You know, crazy again, just because matching energy, another, you know, experience to share. A woman I knew years ago was in San Diego, California. She was part of a group, and the man and the woman running the group, I knew they were shagging other people in that cult, in that little group there. And that's what some of these, I mean, it happens in churches too. Lots of men and women in church are passing each other around. Don't think it doesn't happen in church, because it does. But this spiritual group, she'd asked me to join, and I kind of fell into it. I'm like, oh, I feel sick. What is that? And they showed me a picture of the man. I'm like, oh my gosh. No, thanks. You know, again, guys, trust your first instinct. Trust it. Doesn't mean it's always right, though, but trust what you get and look at why you got that. Anyway, this guy is going over to this woman's house. And the last time he went over to her house, they had sex. And she called me in a state, and she said, he came over. It was really great. We were having a session, a spiritual session. We ended up having sex. And she said, I feel wrong. And I said to her, he left something in you. And she threw up on the phone. He left something in her. So anyway, so she had to do her own inner work for a few days. You know, I'm not everyone's Muppet, picking everybody up off the floor. She did some spiritual practice for herself, and she came over to my office, and I saged her after doing a few other things. And as I was saging her after doing a few more things to get to this stage, I was having her turn slowly clockwise, and I was saging. I could feel it, and it was huge. It was this etheric, huge attachment on her back. And then whatever it was, the way I swept the sage, I felt it like that, and she went like that, and she went, oh my God, and she almost passed out. This is a God's honest, true story. She almost passed out. She went, she said, I felt it leave. Now, not everyone's going to have that physical experience, but it is possible for us to be able to pinpoint a shift in our energy field, in our energy frequency. And we want to keep our energy field pure. We want to use the words, we want to use the tools. And again, firing your guides, everyone. If you feel you have to negotiate with a guide, that is not a true loving guide. If you believe that somehow you've won the attention of Baba G or Jesus Christ or whatever, fine, because if these loving entities really are who they say they are, they're not going to give a shit, because your job is to ascend within your vessel. Your job is to grow your light, to be more of who you are. So you get everybody else out the way, you extend your beautiful light, and then those that truly are on your team and in support of you will join you after the event, because they're able to have access to the light you be, even when you've grown, because they're ascending with you, or they're at a higher level and are happy to support you in your growth. But those that aren't at a higher level, they cannot let us move. We can't grow. So if we're negotiating with our guides and we're scared to let them go, we've got entities, attachments, maybe even demonic.
Yeah. And the worst one is, as you're saying that, is the spiritual people who say, oh, you know, they might not be married, but let's just say they're married with children. Oh, but I've been told that this other man who's not my husband, my guide says it's my twin flame, but because it's my twin flame, it's okay. This is nonsense. This twin flame nonsense is part of the false light matrix, and many egos are going to fall on the floor now as we say that, because, you know, yes, you can have soul connections, you can have soulmates, but you know what? If you're in a happy marriage or even an unhappy marriage, you know, just be very mindful of any beings who are saying that this person's your twin flame, and you're thinking, oh, but he's married and it's very complicated. Honestly, you're not meant to be with that person, or you're like, well, I don't really like them, but I'm being told that they're my twin flame. You're being bonded through this false light matrix, and it's nonsense. That it's not a truth. It's not a lost part of you. You are a complete being in yourself. If you're racing around the planet looking for a male aspect or a female aspect of yourself, I mean, what are the chances that your twin flame, okay, so think about it. If you believe there was only one twin flame, okay, what are the chances, just common sense, what are the chances of that twin flame being incarnated on the planet the same time as you now, and actually being in the right age range for you to date them? Okay, so they've got to be within the right age range of dating you, and you'd have to be attracted to them, you know. And also, if it was your twin flame, tough luck, they're married now and they're happily married, but you're going to pursue them because you believe they're your twin flame. It's just a matter of time before you get their husband or wife out of the way, and you two will be a happy union together. This is nonsense.
It's so
sorry, I get very passionate about that one.
This is so important, because, you know, people need to hear it, because then they can stop their own trauma and suffering and guilt and betrayal, you know, of the betrothed, you know, or whatever, the children, whatever, the awful pain we bring. The other great thing is, and thank you for bringing this up as a subject, it's so important. Those people who say, well, he's my twin flame or my soul, whatever the others, there's the two sayings, the twin flame and the soul partner, the soul, I forget, whatever. And not to dismiss, because there's a beauty in everything, of course, but come on. The people that say, well, you know, he's my twin flame or my soul partner or whatever, and so therefore I must endure his addiction, his beating me up, or her sleeping around, or her whatever. No, you don't. Just because they're in your past life, you have to suffer in this life. Bollocks. Absolute codswallop, poppycock, and bollocks. Get a grip. You really think you're going to evolve by pain? We evolve by pain if we've made a decision to in this lifetime, not in any other. We grow through pain if we choose to, because we're addicted to trauma and we're addicted to drama. I had to let a friend go, and she was a really great, fun person. But by the third time that woman had turned on me, you know, in a group of people, putting me down, screaming, humiliating me, accusing me of whatever. I'm like, you know what, dude, I'm sorry. Well, we cannot be friends. And she's emailing, I'm so sorry. No, 3 times I let it happen. The first time I knew I should have let her go. The first time I met her, I knew she was going to be a handful. Lovely, lovely person. The first time she did what she did, which was verbal abuse in front of her grown daughters, I'm like, wow. And then I thought, you should walk away. But it suited me not to, and I take responsibility for that. A second time she did it, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that again. You did it again. And I'm like, I don't need that. And I said to her, you're addicted, I believe, if I may share, to growing through pain. My friendships, my relationships, I choose not to grow through pain. I let that drama train and that pain train and that violent train leave when I was about 24. I'm not going back there. So again, let's recognize what our mode of transport is that we choose in our growth. If we think we're going to grow by physical, emotional, violent, dramatic, painful pain, then we are. Things are going to happen that we don't have control over. Of course they are. But look at your own transport as you're going through your healing journey.
And I think what you've talked about, the friendships and letting people go, I think that is huge just now, really big about, you don't need to tolerate these terrible friendships. It's not okay that they're, I've let a lot of people go. I'm like, I'm not going to let you talk to me like that. Snippy little comments, like often it's a jealousy, and you can't sort of bring through with you people who are jealous of you, and you can't be less than who you truly are to make that person feel comfortable, because you don't want to upset the friendship. So you'll be less than who you truly are to keep the friendship, where this male or female might be passive aggressive and rude to you, or snippy little comments like, oh, it's all right for you, or this or that. Friendships are about balance. And yes, over the period of time, one time you might be needing to give a bit more, and another time that, but if it's always like that, I had a lot of people, it was always like that, I was always giving, it's all right for you, Andrea, because you can do this, so I'm the one with the car, so I've got to always be picking you up, always doing this for you, I'm the one always paying for the coffee and the cake or whatever, because I earn more than you. No, it's not fair. They're not balanced friendships. It's you've got to look for balance in friendships, and not tolerating bad friendships, isn't it? And if you're nice people, you want somebody who respects you. The other thing that I think bad friendships do, and people tolerate this way too much, is people constantly cancelling on them and thinking it's okay. Yeah, of course things happen in people's lives and they have to cancel, but if your friendships aren't respectful, and they're not respectful of your time and your energy, then that's not a nice friend. You need to knock it on the head and not feel bad, because the minute you knock these shitty friendships on the head, the universe, which you are the universe, goes, oh, I see you're upping the game now, not tolerating shit anymore. Let's bring in someone with a higher vibration, going to treat you a lot better.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. No, that's so true. It's so true. So the people that now might be worrying, like, how do I ditch my shitty friends? How do I not have to spend so much time with family members that just make my butt cheeks clench together like they've been super glued? It's very simple. You just choose not to engage. Now, you do the minimal. You make the minimal effort, because effort in is a connection. There could be an energetic match there. They're going to come and energetically match you back, or maybe they're looshing from you, draining from you, taking from you. The less effort and energy you put out, your output is going to be felt by them or not. They might try and come in a bit more. That's all right. You just stand ground. Just be neutral. Be that beautiful neutral bubble. Don't go into first or second gear. Stay in neutral gear. Keep your energy neutral. They will start to dissolve away. People naturally will drift. They might say, oh, you're a moody cow. You never come out and play anymore. I can't stand your face. God, you stink. Whatever. It doesn't matter. but they will start to move away from you. Their energy frequency no longer matches yours. Now, very important point. Do not be arrogant, as I have been in my past, and listen to other people who say, oh, they're so low vibe. Your vibe's so much higher, Dani. They're so low vibe. No, it doesn't mean their vibration is lower. Okay, that's not nice. They're on their journey too. Okay, let's not judge how the vibes are up or down. Let's just focus on us being able to release ourselves from pain or people putting binds around us that we've allowed. Oh yeah, we allowed them. They didn't do it to you, you allowed them. Let's be honest about that. Also, nobody makes you feel, oh, you make me feel bad about myself. You make me feel ugly. You make me feel stupid. You make me feel, no, you make you feel. Because you're responding to stimuli, verbal, physical, actions, whatever. And the stimuli you're responding to is formulating in your field, formulating feelings, thoughts, etc. But ultimately, you're in charge of how you feel. Now, I'm not saying if somebody punches you, of course you're going to feel, that's terrible. I'm not talking about that. Let's not be silly or extreme. Let's stay planted and grounded here. You are the one that decides. Like Andrea could say to me, God, Dani, you're so fat and you're so boring. I'd be like, oh, you bloody rude cow, you know, and I go, wow. First of all, because I always respond this way, oh my God, I always think, hang on, is that true? First of all, always catch myself now. Is that true? Do I need a bit of a clip on my own self? Have I missed something here? Very quickly, scan. No, I don't. Okay, that was rude. You know what I mean? So I can decide then to be upset by what my friend Andrea has said, you know, knowing I should say it and laugh her head off after because we're just being silly, right? But some people, right? My point now, Andrea.
Yeah. But also, I think in friendships, I think one of the other big things is, you know, I'm a lone shopper in general. I shop alone. I don't need the other opinions of other women, but some women do, you know, and the loving friend, you know, in the on the odd occasions I have done, and your friends try to dress on, and they go, what do you think? And you're like, no, it's your body shape. No, that is a no, you know, and you're not doing it to be horrible, you know, so don't say yes when you think, oh, she looks like a pile of shit in that. It's like, no, be honest and say it gracefully. You know, if you've got, you know, thighs full of cellulite and thunder thighs, then perhaps a skirt to the knee might be more advisable than, you know, a short skirt. It's you know, it's you being the loving friend saying, you know, unfortunately we're all made in different shapes and sizes and different things fit us differently. And, you know, when I was younger, I had a friend who was probably 3 times bigger than me. And we were probably 14 or 15 at the time. And we wore the same outfits, which was probably not a good look. But as friends, you know, and sadly for her, I was the slimmer one. And it probably wasn't a good look for her. And so, you know, as friends, you do go around looking like Tweedledee and Tweedledums sometimes. But it's like, it's not a good thing that we all wear the same thing. And just because that eyeshadow suited your friend, it might not suit you, you know. So I think people can get offended. Like, I've got one friend, it is really funny, she gave her sister-in-law some bubble bath called Dirty Cow for Christmas, and
no. So funny.
With like, if I gave that maybe to one of my friends, they'd think it was funny maybe, but the fact is that she didn't really have this friendship with her sister-in-law, and there was a bit of animosity anyway. So buying her a bubble bath called Dirty Cow really just put the kibosh on any friendship or relationship they might be building, you know. So you have to have discernment in, are these the sensitive petals? Is the friendship developed enough that I can say or do these things? And sometimes you do need to check in and make sure you're not offending people, because they change, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely brilliant. You know, we could go again 50,000 different ways here. Again, in how we scan the body, how we remove entities, how we look, how we feel that we even have them, how we take ownership for everything as we're on our individual, spiritual, emotional, etherical, ancestral, you know, real journey that we're perceiving here as we're on this earth. As the earth is ascending, so are we too.
And the other thing is, I think because when we speak, we end up talking about deeply spiritual stuff, and then we end up drifting into just like mates having a chat about general stuff in life in general. And, you know, like all of us have a life. Like, you know, I've got to go now, get in the car and drive to see my dad, you know, 4 or 5 hours away. We all have regular, grounded, real human things that we have to do in the middle of our spirituality. It's like we don't all just sit around, you know, although there are breatharians, but we don't sit around just all breathing the prana and, you know, namaste all day. You know, we are all living real lives within the 3D, but living a different vibration of that, and we all deal with real life as well, don't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the thing, that's the balance. Again, reminding us earlier, the balance, we have to stay balanced, and everybody can walk around. In fact, you know, the monks in the Himalayas or the Himalayas, you know, it's much easier for them to live a life of pure spirituality, because that's what they do all the time. It's much harder for us. We are the brave ones, us humans who exist in this false light matrix 3D simulation. It is harder for us to have that spiritual advancement or evolvement. I'm just in a beautiful spirit right here. Hi, baby girl, how you doing? How you doodling? But yeah, it's wonderful to acknowledge that it's harder for us. We are braver than those that set themselves up as the spiritual moguls, because we're living the day to day. You know, and so many of us have information that we so desperately want to impart on others, but others aren't there yet. They're on their own journey, and maybe they're more advanced than us in other ways. That's the thing. Again, also remembering that it's always teacher, student, student, teacher. If we constantly put ourselves in this elevated, you know, thinking that we know more than everybody else, oh my God, you know, out of all the people in the world, I'm in more awe of a newborn baby. I'm in more awe of the majesty and the delight of a puppy, truly, or a foal, or something so magical from the creator source that we've all come from, than I am from any single person out there. There isn't a single person, honest to God, you know, even God herself, and there isn't a single being that I think is the highest of the highest of the high. We've all come from that same love. We are love. And we're learning to become more and more of that love, because we expand, and anything dark and any shadows, they don't exist. They can't exist. So many different ways to go. Andrea Foulkes, please leave us with your great wisdom as we bring this conversation to an end.
Oh, what wisdom could I say? Well, let me show you a woman I'm loving just now as the end of my wisdom. Because you spoke about being in religious orders. I did in this lifetime, and that's for another day. I did spend 5 days with a closed order of nuns once in this lifetime. But she was a nun. But I think we don't have to be nuns in this lifetime. Hildegard of Bingen, loved this woman. She was a 12th century mystic, and she, you know, did music, she did herbs. The thing is, though, we can bring in all the gifts from our other lifetimes as well. And we're here to just live a fearless life. Of course, you're going to have some little fears, but you're here to override those fears. And the whole point of being here on this planet at this time, you know, and Dani's a good example of that. Even when something comes in left field and knocks you down, I mean, with the loss of, you know, the beautiful Jeff, you have risen up like the phoenix out of the fire from something that, you know, some people don't deal with loss very well. But, you know, use Dani as a good example of using that loss and just being a cosmic catalyst to rise your life back up. And if she can do it, and, you know, I've done it from other things as well, we can all do that. We're no different than anybody who's watching us, really.
That's true. We're no different. We might have a few more little stories and a few more other areas, but it does not mean that we are an overall authority, that we are the owners of the world, the goddesses of everything. No, it means that we're two friends that love each other. We do very similar work in our therapeutic and spiritual practice with people, as we've done most of our lives. And we're sitting here on my lovely channel, sharing and imparting for free information to help people who are looking for skills and tools and ideas, and bring in food for thought, you know, and it's like, take it or leave it. I'm not attached to it. Andrea's not attached to it. But I would recommend those of you looking for sessions, having a one-to-one. Andrea is available. She is taking people in her online clinic to sit and have sessions with, as well as physical sessions. So let us know how people can get hold of you, please.
I have a lovely website that is slightly going to be changed soon, so don't be put off if a word error comes up at the moment. It's not me, it's the servers. And that's the other thing. We all have to learn about technology to just be able to offer you our spiritual gifts. We've got to deal with technology, not my strongest point, but we have to, and sometimes it doesn't function properly, and it all has to be upgraded. So mine is andreafoulkes.com, and then I have a YouTube channel which is Andrea Foulkes Past Life Regression. So lots of free content on YouTube, and then I think Dani likes Facebook as well. I think we're Facebookers. I've got a business channel, Andrea Foulkes Past Life Regression, and then I have my other one, Andrea Foulkes, with a picture of me. If they're not pictures of us, then they're probably not us. And also be very discerning that we are sometimes getting our channels copied, so make sure it really genuinely is us. And then I was tiki-talking a bit, but I have to upload my tiki-talk channel again, I think, and Instagram a little bit, I think, because people are more fond on Instagram. I think sadly Facebook is for older people, although personally I love Facebook. And what other channels have we got? Like, there's so many, but it's like, just stick with those, and you know, you can email us and contact us. I do half-an-hour sessions as well as hour ones online, and then the in-person sessions are 2 hours. And just a diary date to save is the 25th of August. I'm running a workshop on ancient Lemuria and us entering our hearts of that at the beautiful Chalice Well in Glastonbury.
Beautiful Chalice Well in Glastonbury. We're also putting a tour together, tour of some of the British churches and villages here in the UK. And so we would start in the area of Sussex. Can only take 20 of you maximum. Those of you that have an interest, you can let me know. And what we would do is end up in Glastonbury, and Andrea would be there as part of the tour too. She would take us up the tour and gift us her wisdom of the Chalice Well and the other beautiful spots of the great Glastonbury. So that's something that will bring more information to you on very, very shortly. So Andrea, thank you so much, and to everyone out there, her information will be right underneath the video. So you just go underneath the video on YouTube. Sometimes people still have an issue with trying to find the information. Her name is Andrea Foulkes, Foulkes, Past Life Regressionist, UK genius. All righty, Roo. I'm sure there's nothing else currently that I wanted to mention. Oh, apart from, if you want to come to the greatest disclosure conference in the world, get your tickets for the Galactic and Spiritual Informers Connection, everything UFO alien, everything secret space program, everything military corruption, government programs, black programs. We have the best speakers in the world on those subjects. September 27-29, outside of Denver, Colorado. Just go to Galactic Spiritual Informers. Galactic Spiritual Informers. Thank you, Andrea Foulkes. Love you so much. See you soon.
Love everyone. Bye.
You guys out there, send love from my heart to yours, and we'll see you soon.